Welcome back to the Sportsdesk on SYN 90.7 FM. And today we have our very special elite athlete, special guest this morning. And he is a high jumper, proudly representing RMIT at the Australian Nationals and Uni National competitions, where he came first, along with representing Australia at the 2016 Olympic Games, 2018 Commonwealth Games, and the 2019 World Championships in Doha. Our special guest is currently balancing his IT degree at RMIT whilst building a strong training base in the lead up to next year's Commonwealth Games and World Championships. Joel Baden, welcome to the Sports Desk today.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
What was your inspiration for participating in athletics and then eventually specialising in the high jump?
Yeah, so I've been in athletics for a long time now. I've got three other brothers actually, but my oldest brother was involved in athletics and he always loved the high jump. And we would always be watching kind of as younger kids, him doing the high jump and thinking it was a pretty awesome looking sport. But soon enough, we were all kind of chucked into a little athletics for a time. I love the high jump. I did all the other events, love the jumping sports like long jump and triple, but high jump started to take off fairly early, and I was starting to break a few little athletics records down in Geelong, and kind of just continued up from there. I kept doing athletics, and after seniors, or around that time when it was getting towards high school, I got a scholarship up to Melbourne Grammar based on my high jump and my athletics, and that's when I started being coached by Australia's probably most prominent kind of high jump coach, who also coached Tim Forsyth, who was the Australian record holder, Sandro Bacetto. I started just every year breaking my records and kind of incrementing with my heights. And then probably the peak of those performances, or kind of the defining moment, was in my year 12, the APS sports in 2014, where I broke the current APS record and jumped 229. Which qualified me for the 2015 World Championships in Beijing next year. So wow. Ever since then, it's just been, a bit of progression, just making World Championship teams as I can. And here I am, was it 5 or 6 years later?
Although the field event of high jump is pretty self-explanatory, could you give us a basic summary of the rules and how one is victorious in the competition?
The basic kind of premise of high jump is you jump over a stick in the air. Yeah. So now you can always reduce events down to something pretty ridiculous, but you have a run up, you run around a curve, and you have to take off on one foot and clear a bar and hope it doesn't fall off. And you just keep going until, you get 3 attempts per height. And you do that until you kind of fail or stop the competition. And can't jump off 2 feet like a gymnast or anything like that. It's not pole vault, as some people mistake, so there's no pole involved. That's about it. You just run, take off on 1 foot, and try and clear the bar as high as you can.
And I think it's also worth mentioning for our audience out there who aren't aware of high jump that you do land on a mat. You don't just fall onto a hard bit of ground. You do land on a mat. You don't land in a pool. It's a pretty comfortable mat to land on, isn't it?
It is. Well, actually, it depends. There have been some mats that have been very hard and not particularly comfortable, but compared to a sand pit or some amateur jumpers who will just miss the pit altogether and land on the ground, a pit is definitely more comfortable.
As mentioned in your introduction, you've been talented enough to compete in the 2016 Olympic Games, the 2018 Commonwealth Games, and the 2019 World Championships, and you're only 25 as well, which is incredible. Now, what is the difference between the level of competition and the pressure with all 3 of these events, and which experience out of these 3, the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games, and the World Championships, did you enjoy the most?
It's a good question. Probably actually my favorite event so far would actually be my first World Championships, which I competed in 2015, which was in Beijing. That was coming straight out of high school. And I had no expectations. Yeah, headed over there, and it was just a great experience. I didn't make the final or anything like that, but I just went out there, had a bit of fun. I still jumped 226, which was pretty high considering that I didn't make the final. But I think that was just a good kind of fun first experience. And although there was pressure, it was more so, just getting my feelers out for what it was like to compete against other world-class athletes.
Elaborate on the competitions you have planned for 2021. And are you aiming to compete in the Tokyo Olympics this year?
So actually, we have, at least I had decided with the support of my coach, that we're not going to pursue the Olympics this year. We had our domestic season, which was shortened, and we were just going to kind of see how that kind of panned out. My best jump this season has been 224 with about an average of 222. The Olympic qualifier is 233, so it's still quite a way off. So in terms of selection for the Olympics, it's either jumping that automatic qualifier or being in the top 30. So apart from that, after the nationals and uni nationals, having not jumped the qualifier and having a few little kind of lingering like potential injuries or little niggles that would be better sorted out than rushing for the Olympics. Yeah, we decided to just, call it off, get back into some good training for the rest of the year and look forward to next year, which is going to be pretty crazy and busy with both the Commonwealth Games in London and the World Championships, which are being held in Oregon.
They've got some very big sequoia trees there, Joel, so I don't know if you'll be jumping over too many of those.
Probably not. Maybe I'll climb up them. I don't know.
Yeah, might be some good practice.
Yeah.
Now, in sports, the word peak is often thrown around a lot. Now, what age is considered the peak for high jumpers, and how does your head coach, your team, and yourself go about deciding what competitions to participate in based on your peak and your peak performances?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't really want to think about it because time is going pretty quickly now. I can't really even believe I'm 25, but the peak age for high jumpers, there's always variance. I don't know, 28 I'd say might be probably the best before you probably start having a few like losses or something like that. But even then, I think there have been high jumpers in the past who've been competing in their early 30s. But I think late 20s would probably be the peak, and probably around the age where I'd retire, unless I'm proven wrong and my body decides to just ramp up and keep going higher. But I don't know.
Now, Joel, finally, what is your craziest high jump story you have for us, either in competition or casually? We know you haven't snapped a bar as yet, but do you have a crazy story about any of your competitions or any of your heats potentially?
An interesting story, at least for me, was it was some time back in 2000 and early 2016, before the Olympics. My training was going really well at the beginning of the year, and I was jumping quite high, like might have been mid 20s, and I was in really good form. And we had a competition planned on a Saturday, and for whatever reason, I might have slept in or not made it. So I missed the competition. My coach wasn't particularly happy, and I was in really good form. So the fact that I missed the competition, it was just a complete wasted opportunity. So anyway, it might have been the next day at training, we decided to do just a mock competition, just to kind of make up for the fact that I hadn't competed. And I was so angry that I missed the competition, or annoyed about it, because I felt really good, that it kind of like gave me this ridiculous energy, and I was just way too pumped up for this training session. So anyway, I think it was obviously unofficial, but I jumped 231 or 232 just in my training session that day. And it was just ridiculous. And I remember thinking afterwards, man, I should have just competed at that competition, and then I would have qualified. But that's probably the closest to a crazy story I can think of.
That's brilliant. Almost simulating what the competition would have been like. Potentially, that might be a little bit of a motivating factor for future events. Maybe miss the Commonwealth Games so you can go crazy nuts at the Olympics.
Yeah, but it'd have to be in the same manner. I'd have to sleep in.
You would.
Whilst I was at the camp at the Commonwealth Games,
Yes.
then miss it, and everyone would, and then yeah. to be in that regard. But
But at least it had the motivational effect. Some people would just bury themselves after that, but at least it fired you up.
oh yeah, no. When the adrenaline gets going in me, I feel invincible.
Anyway, Joel, thank you so much for joining us today on the Sports Desk. Keep flying high in your competitions, and we look forward to seeing you representing Australia again next year for the Commonwealth Games and then eventually the Olympics in Paris. Best of luck with the competitions and keep representing RMIT proudly, Joel. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good to speak.